Hello, it's time for comic time. It's like hyper time, but not really. I'm Mike, joined by.
I'm Vincent, and this is our show where we talk about comics. We don't have a news segment today. Not really any critical news that I can think of that passed by.
The DC books are going to be reprinted in 6 issues. The Walmart DC books are going to be reprinted
Yeah.
in six
Well,
issue stories. That's the format they're going to go with, and then eventually they'll get collected. Yeah.
uh, oh, what? Oh, for like single issue formats?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
that's
okay.
what the Newsarama article said.
Yeah,
So each issue will contain 2 chapters from the Walmart issues.
I just saw the headline and assumed that they were talking about the trades, which I already knew about because I follow some of the like catalog stuff and shared that with some of our group. So I thought it was like old news,
No, no,
but
no.
that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, they're going to be first published in 6 issues, with each story containing 2 of the chapters from the Walmart issues, because each one was 10 pages. That gets you 20 pages. So, and then once those are done, I imagine being collected. So, which we already knew. But I saw Shazam last night and enjoyed it. You haven't seen it yet, so can't really discuss it.
Yeah.
I think you'll enjoy it just like the same way we liked Aquaman. I could say that the tones of these movies are finally like on the right track, and finally, I think the spirit is there, which it was also slowly missing. I would say the pacing on this and Aquaman still have the same problems, where I feel like these are still like 45 minutes too long.
Once I see it, well, I don't necessarily need to be on it, but perhaps once I see it, once some other people get to see it, maybe watch out for like a Shazam review. We could like fake doctor it in as a Big Red Cheese episode -1 or something.
I mean, I'd love to read. I mean, if we want to sneak in it as a review, like I don't know if we want to do offshoot ourselves. I mean, I would down to be do the movie and then review Jeff Smith's Monster Society of Evil, or
or
something like that.
or Jeff Johns, since it's actually relevant.
I mean, I'll say this. I mean, I know you and others are not high on the new 52 take on the character, but honestly, the way to adapt him to screen, I think it made easier, and I think it made like it worked. Like I was not unhappy with the way they presented it, and they improved on a lot of the faults that I thought the new 52 story did. Like I genuinely liked Billy, and I don't think he was just like a dick like he was in the Jeff Johns issues.
Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting to kind of enjoy it as a movie, but
I think you will enjoy it. I thought Zachary Levi was pretty entertaining.
as a as a cranky old man, I'll have issues. But
Oh yeah, like no, like walking out of the movie, I was like, yeah, you're gonna enjoy it, but also you're gonna rant about all the little niche things. But I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by the end credit stuff. That I thought it was pretty bold to go there right from the start. Setting up your sequel 20 minutes into the movie, you'll see what I mean by it when I say that. But I'm genuinely excited. The movie is on good. It looks to be on good par track to make maybe 65, 70 million. I think trajectory. It took 9 million in on Thursday night, which was a little bit less than Aquaman took on Thursday night showings. But so a little bit down from what Aquaman had, but also I think they're projecting a strong weekend and a strong showing, which is good.
yep. So our retro book of the week is Hawkman Volume 4, number 40, and I dropped my notes. What's the I think this is from 2000. This is like March,
It's July of 05 on the cover.
July 05. Rather than opening a new tab, what I could have and should have done is grab this book, which I handily have.
Oh, I didn't know you binded all that stuff too.
Yeah, so this is my custom bind of all of that Hawkman series following the Jeff Johns run. And that entire run, save a few like fill-in issues and stuff, written by Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti. The creative team of this issue, obviously, and mostly drawn by Joe Bennett. And I think we made this reference, joke, whatever you want to call it. It's not funny, but we've said this a few times. Joe Bennett has a very long career, and we're going to talk about him later on the show.
Yeah, we are. It's talk about two very different stuff. Like, I wouldn't say very different styles, but like you can definitely see his growth of an artist from this to Immortal Hulk.
Here's the cover to our specific issue, Hawkman number 40. And so on the cover, the Hawks, Hawkman, and Hawkgirl are surrounded by villains. Hawkgirl seems like unconscious or messed up, and it says the fall of Hawkman. And then as you get into it, you learn that this is part 4 of a story. And so that's always, when we do these like random issues, that's always a potential challenge. Is we could
it's more so like, all right, run to the wiki and see what the hell is going on, just to familiarize myself.
So we open with some JSA members and Green Arrow and Fury, and this is Fury Lita Hall, kind of a JSA character. So Fury was created by Roy Thomas as basically like a replacement Wonder Woman for Golden Age stories, because DC doesn't, even back then, they didn't like using Earth 2 Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman that much, so they would make up like replacement characters. And that's who Fury is. And through like the weird stuff with alternate Earths and Hawkman's reincarnations and everything like that, at a certain point, Hawkman and Fury had a relationship. And I'll get more to that later. And so they're at a funeral for Hawkgirl. That's what it seems. And then we get a flashback. And so Hawkman shows up to the hospital with Hawkgirl, and then Speed Saunders shows up because this Hawkgirl is Kendra Saunders. And the whole thing is that Hawkman is constantly being reincarnated, and Hawkgirl kind of is, but this Hawkgirl really isn't. She's just totally random girl, but she has like kind of inherited like the memories sort of a previous Hawk woman. And so it's the weird dynamic where it's like, from Hawkman's perspective, it's like, hey, we're destined to be together. And she's like, eh. And eventually she kind of gets into him, but it's kind of it's a little more dramatic than the usual relationship.
I'll say this, going for his art and look of Hawkman, I like the big honkin' Hawkman logo on his chest.
Yeah.
And I dig like the combat, like the cargo pants look with the belt. I like that.
I mean, it's pretty close to what DC is using right now in their ongoing Hawkman series. It's fairly close. A lot better than the like New 52 Savage Hawkman type of designs.
Yeah, I like the simplicity of it, but also like it's updated for like, I like the cargo pants look. I like how he has like the straps, which he later in the issue he ends up holding like axes and swords off it. I think there's a lot of fun you can do with that.
So Hawkgirl's Kendra Saunders and her uncle, a supporting character in this book, Speed Saunders, and he is actually like one of the earliest in continuity DC characters. He's one of those early like detective or like World War II characters. And so it's similar to like Slam Bradley, where around the same era, Slam Bradley was a supporting character in Catwoman. And so it's the same kind of idea. He's just a supporting character in this. And just to connect Hawkgirl to that cool, nerdy continuity. And so honestly, and having not read this in a long time, I think in this specific issue, it's a little bit unclear what happens. So Hawkman was drugged by the fadeaway man, maybe to like beat up Hawkgirl himself, but he's also talking about like the villains fucked her up. So it's not clear whether he accidentally beat the shit out of her or the villains did or both or something like that. But he's going to go chase him down, and the JSA, like Alan Scott and Jay Garrick, they're like, hey, we're not supposed to kill people. Stop freaking out. And he just brushes them off, and one of them makes an identity crisis reference. I don't know if you quite caught that. He talked about lobotomies and stuff.
Yeah, I caught that, as Identity Crisis still very fresh in 2005.
And so he goes to see his son, his son Hector Hall, from like weird reincarnations. It's a complicated family history. And Hector Hall at this point is Dr. Fate. This Dr. Fate, he's in a lot of the JSA stuff around this period. I like Hector Hall as a character, but this design for Dr. Fate, the joke about Dr. Fate is that each subsequent like design of Dr. Fate, the like crotch armor area gets
bigger and
taller.
bigger. Yeah.
And Hector's is like up to his nipples, and it looks really stupid to me.
Yeah, I don't think he looks terrible, but yeah, that gold, like how it goes like over his rib cage, like over like where your chest kind of like cavity like matches. It looks really bad.
I don't care who's under the helmet. In my opinion, it should always just be like the gold, basically just gold solid trunks.
Yeah.
Classic superhero style. And so the two of them go into Carter's mindscape and defeat like a shadow Hawkman who's killed other reincarnation memories. It's kind of sort of interesting scene. But
Also, Hawkman gets all armored up.
Yeah. And then Hawkman recruits Golden Eagle, Charlie Parker, to help him. And so Golden Eagle, I believe, was originally introduced not in Hawkman stuff, but in Teen Titans stuff. He was one of the members of Titans West in like the 70s, as like kind of that last chunk of Teen Titans before New Teen Titans, and would appear again over the years and eventually gets connected to Hawkman. And he was reintroduced, I believe, just in general for post-crisis. He hadn't appeared forever. He's reintroduced in a long arc right before this, and that Golden Eagle arc is the only part of the Palmiotti and Gray run which was ever collected. And obviously that trade is like 12 years old at this point. And they charge in, and then the Manhawks show up, which are kind of major like Hawkman villain fodder. And that's about it. Again, just a single part of at least a 5-part story, since this was part 4.
I'd say for Joe Bennett's art, because we're going to talk about him again later, this looks very, very like kind of House DC style at this time across the board, especially in the way it's colored. You could probably give me 3 DC books from this era, not tell me the artist, and I probably wouldn't be able to identify who's who.
It's not bad though.
No, it's not bad at all. I enjoy it. Like, I have seen much worse art. I'm just saying, like, from this style and point in DC, I kind of know what these books look like. They all kind of look the same.
Yeah.
More noticeably to me is the fact that I thought by July of 2005, DC had switched to the new logo.
No, you mean like what's the nickname for that? Like the planet logo or whatever they call it?
Yeah, the little swoosh planet logo.
So
this is still a classic DC bullet on this.
Yeah, so that swoosh thing, the first appearance of that logo is on DC Special Return of Donna Troy 1, which is kind of the first pseudo tie-in miniseries to Infinite Crisis. So we're very close to the
new
logo.
This has to be the last legs for it.
Like, it's probably like literally like 2 or 3 months away.
I remember when that logo changed, everyone was like everyone lost their minds about it. Like how, and then like it was weird for a while to see that logo, and then I grew accustomed to it, which I still liked that logo more than the one they switched to in the New 52. I thought like the little Peel logo, the book page back Peel logo looked terrible. I hated that logo.
But yeah, so I think this is I'm a Hawkman fan. I have 3 Hawkman custom binds on my shelf, which I went out.
I don't hate Hawkman. I have not read a lot of him. More of anything I've read of him, it's been in a team book.
But I think this run is super underrated. Both of us feel, I would say, that Palmiotti and Gray.
I mean, I like that creative team.
Yeah, very solid, underrated. I mean, you could argue that in some instances, you could say they're like kind of workmanlike, but they put out a lot of good stuff, and even their stuff that no one cares a ton
Well,
about, it's still solid.
I mean, like I'll say this: like, if I'm going to give you the Workman title, that means that I'm 95% of the time, at least for me, I'm going to enjoy what you put out, and normally it's probably going to be good. And also, to me, still like above average everything else I'm going to read.
Yeah.
So,
So the Jeff Johns run, initially with some co-writing by James Robinson, is like 25 issues, and then this run and the first like 2 or 3 issues are fill-ins and stuff, but this is basically 26 through 49 and
okay,
ends basically on top of Infinite Crisis, and the Hawks die or whatever for like the billionth time, and then get sidelined until Brightest Day.
yeah, that's because I remember the Black Lanterns versions of them kind of fuck some stuff up in Blackest Night.
Yeah, and again, because I mean, I got this custom bind because I like Hawkman. DC,
They're never going to reprint that.
yeah,
Unless there's a Hawkman movie, they're never going to reprint that.
yeah, it's unlikely or far ways off because the Palmiani Gray, we like them a lot, but especially nowadays, not huge name recognition like Jeff Johns.
Well, not only that, I don't think. I mean, they're obviously not going to sell as much stuff as Jeff Johns does.
Yeah, and in fact, they were supposed to start collecting the John Ostrander Hawkworld run, and they canceled. It was going to be a series of thick trades, and they canceled the first one.
I would love a Jonah Hex omnibus from them.
Yeah. I like slowly track those trades down.
Those trades are very hard to find. The one type called Origins, where they kind of do Jonah's origin story again, is super hard to find.
Yeah. But good issue. Hawkman is this our best retro issue that we've read?
I think most consistent across the board.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely better than that Spider-Man one.
That Spider-Man one's definitely the worst.
So next week we're gonna read. We did the RNG and we got March 1969 from Marvel, and we lucked out and got Fantastic Four number 84 by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
Which
And
you say is
Dr. Doom is here.
yeah. So I'm excited.
It's gonna be awesome. Our next book is Section Zero, number 1.
Yeah, we're starting off this week's books with indies, and then we're gonna go DC, and then finish off with Marvel because we got a bunch of Marvel books this week.
Yep. This is written by Carl Kiesel, and I believe inked by him as well. Pencils by Tom Grummett. And this is the team, the classic team from a Adventures of Superman run, which ran through the death of Superman. And just the same way, so Louise Simonson and John, excuse me, still getting over a dumb cough. Louise Simonson and John Bogdanov were the team on Superman, Man of Steel, and then they got to get their Steel spinoff. And so Kiesel and Grummett, Adventures of Superman, got to do their Superboy spinoff.
Right.
And both of those runs, heavily influenced by Jack Kirby. That's where you get a lot of the like Cadmus, Double X, and all that crap.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of a lot of that. Granted, I haven't read a ton of it, but I love the idea of this creative team. They're very like classic inspired guys.
Yeah.
Very
and then I read this and I was like, oh, it's very much from that time.
So Section Zero, this is not the first appearance of Section Zero. This goes back to 2000 and the Guerrilla Comics imprint / studio. And so Image Comics, everyone knows that it was founded by the founders, and most of them had their separate studios. You had Wildstorm and Shadowline and Todd McFarlane Productions and Top Cow and all that shit.
Yeah.
And eventually there have been other, not founders, but other people who are big enough or important enough to have their own studios as part of Image. And technically, I guess anyone could just say, I have a studio, even though I just put out one book. But you've had a few. Robert Kirkman has a studio currently that's Skybound.
Skybound.
JMS had Joe's Books,
Yeah.
and for a while, the early years of Dreamwave Productions, they were an Image studio, and they did like the Transformers books before IDW had them. And Gorilla Comics existed for a little bit. And Gorilla Comics was founded by Kiesel, Grummett, Kurt Busiek, Stuart Immonen, Barry Kitson, George Perez, Mark Waid, and Mike Wieringo. So a really stacked squad. And it included titles like Empire by Waid and Kitson, which eventually moved over to DC, Shock Rockets by Busiek and Immonen, which got a little bit of acclaim and like people sort of remember it, and Telos by Mike Wieringo and scripting by Todd DeZago, who I guess was not a member of the studio. And some of the books moved to other publishers and imprints. Section Zero was one of them, and it only put out 3 issues. And then it relaunched as a webcomic in 2012, and that didn't last either. Then they did a Kickstarter in 2017 to finish and re-release it as an OGN, with a follow-up, Section Zero 1959, just ending its campaign like a few weeks ago, which I backed at a level to get both of the books.
Okay.
And I don't know if you noticed, but the cover of this issue, Section Zero number 1, is dated
date of 2000 on it.
Dated 2000. So the surprise here, and I wanted to read this because I was confused and needed to clarify this for myself. Yeah. This is literally a page-for-page reprint of a 19-year-old comic.
That's why it read like a 19-year-old comic. Okay, that clears a lot of stuff up.
So basically, I kind of tricked Mike into reading 2 retro books this week.
I enjoyed the other book. I did not enjoy this.
The only difference is I think the lettering is redone, but it's the same script. It's not like they changed that. They may have changed like 1 or 2 panels or something.
That's why this looks like it's digitally colored. Like, really, yeah, wow.
So it opens with an Australian guy complaining about a mysterious big cat killing his livestock, and he writes a letter to the UN, and the UN writes him back and is like, hey, we don't do that conspiracy theory bullshit, / you have a dumb cat in Australia, we don't care. But the UN guy calls up a Mr. Wildman, who is busy finding a bug man somewhere in like Cambodia area.
All right.
And his female companion, Doc Challenger, shows up, or maybe her name's Titania. She goes by Tina. She helps out. And then Tesla, the alien, shows up to beam them up, like Scotty. And the bug dude, he's a Cambodian American who was feeling a little rebellious. So he went and got a tattoo. And his deal is if he rubs his tattoo, he transforms into like a part bug thing, and so he's 24-hour bug, and he joins the team because they're going to help him look for his mom.
Okay.
Yep. And the old conspiracy theory dude is their advisor, their UN connection. I like Tesla the alien. He's kind of cute. He basically acts like a 6-year-old or something. He's like, hey, look, hey, look, hey, look. And I forget his name, the conspiracy theory dude, he might be working behind their backs because there's like these ghost soldiers and he's connected to them too. Maybe they do like the dirty work, I don't know. And then in the end they find a giant amphibian dude in Australia.
Yeah, it's like this conspiracy theory Dark Shadow kind of save the world team that I've read this story before, and I didn't enjoy it. I'm not sticking with it.
Yeah, so
the art was fine.
Yeah. So I was confused because, as I said, I literally just backed this campaign for the second book, and one of the tiers was like, get both the books. And I literally just like, because there was like an interview with some podcast that Carl Kiesel did trying to promote the thing. And so I was just basically basing on the preview, on the interview, and then the limited stuff on the Kickstarter page. So I'm like, that sounds cool. So I backed it, and I don't really read it at all or anything. But then I'm confused how this first issue is coming out. I guess just to kind of try and make some more money or more exposure. They're putting out some of it sequentially through Image as well. So I was confused with this. Eventually, I will own this, I guess, in a trade or OGN. But what isn't entirely clear in this issue, I don't know how much of this you could pick up on. The underlying actual premise for this series / franchise is the way he pitches it is this is Carl Kiesel's basically rip off of the Challengers of the Unknown, but with conspiracy theory stuff.
Yeah.
And so I loved that concept, and so I don't really expect that I will read the second issue for this show or anything, because I'm gonna eventually just get the whole thing. But when I eventually get that, and knowing Kickstarter, it could be in like 7 years. But once I get that, maybe I'll do like a spin-off review of the Section Zero franchise as a whole, and let everyone know if it's worth exploring further.
You know what it kind of reminded me of, other than Challenge of the Unknown, is a little bit like Planetary. I mean, it's not really like Planetary at all, but I was like, oh, I'd really rather be just reading Planetary right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the same concept, like Planetary.
Well, kind of. I mean, Planetary is bigger, as in like
that's what I mean.
Secret organization that solves the problems secretly, but like every issue is a story in itself and like an homage to a style of storytelling that came before it. Like you'll have the Godzilla issue, and then like one's a John Woo action movie. Like, but
Planetary is a lot more ambitious, and this is a lot more pulpy, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But obviously, I'm not gonna compare. I'm not gonna actually compare.
It was so slow. It's like we stop every 5 seconds to like explain everything, and I was like, oh my god.
So other indie corner. This one I just read. This is Black Hammer 45 #2. This is still part of Jeff Lemire's Black Hammer universe, but Ray Fox is scripting and Matt Kint is drawing it. And so the Black Hammer Squadron, they're a diverse, like mostly black team of fighter pilots in World War II.
I'm doing the Blackhawks.
Yes. And so the two surviving squad guys, they pick up a retired superhero with wings, and this is the present section of the story. And it's basically like, think like Archangel, well, Angel, but he's like a senior citizen. So it's kind of funny because his wings are like they're like small now, I guess. I don't know how that works, but he's in the back of their car. He won't shut up. He's recounting all his glory days for the millionth time, just like, older people, they tell the same stories all the time. And he's like overshadowing them because they always see him in the shadow of the superheroes. And then we get back to World War II, and that's the rest of the story. They're in their planes, and we pick up where that last issue ended with a giant Nazi Thor in the skies. But I was slightly disappointed. And there's an awesome panel where Thor says something like, "You will feel the godly wrath of the superior race," or something like that. It's a hilarious splash panel. But I was a little disappointed. It's actually just a special effect. There's like a Zeppelin with like a projector, and they're creating Thor in the clouds. But regardless, one of the planes gets damaged. So they land, and then the two of them go ahead, leaving one guy behind. So we're down to two guys. And then we cut to a scene at a concentration camp, and the Germans were like, "Hey, burn everything, get the hell out of here, shoot all the Jews and gypsies and all that shit." But I guess off panel, you don't actually see it, but off panel, I guess the Russians blow up the camp, and some prisoners escape, but they're being hunted down by a werewolf SS leader, which is pretty great. And meanwhile, the front lines down at Nuremberg, we see two other heroes leading the charge. We have like a gunslinging kind of character, like a two-gun kid, but in not modern times, but World War II. And we also have a fish man, which it's clearly like a Namor Aquaman like insert, but he looks exactly like basically like the creature from the Black Lagoon, but like wearing like a diver's helmet and holding a trident. It's pretty great. And then suddenly a Nazi superhero shows up, and it's like a bat themed character, but he also carries a mace. So obviously a little bit of Hawkman influence, I would say. Um, and there's a pretty badass scene where the guy is still in his cockpit of his plane and trying to fly his plane while this Nazi superhero with a mace is like on the back of his plane trying to fight him. And he like pulls out his gun and is like fighting the dude while he's still in the plane and like flying in the air. And the plane crashes into a train, but he bails the last moment, does a little fancy epic roll. And the other guy like rams his plane into the Nazi superhero and like into the ground, potentially killing him through a crash landing. But the Nazi guy probably gets away. It's not clear. Well, it's not entirely clear because then one of the generals that they meet up with is like, hey, one of our superheroes really wants to kill that Nazi superhero. And the superhero that he's referring to is the one who is telling the story in the very beginning of the issue and claiming that he killed the Nazi one. So either he's lying and the Blackhawks know it, or something happened after this. And then the Blackhawks basically come across Sergeant Rock and Easy Company. Well, either it could be Sergeant Rock, could be Sergeant Fury or whatever, and they pass them by. Pass them by, and the version of Sergeant Rock, he's kind of dismissive. There's not really any explicit like suggestion that he's being racist, but you can read into it that way. He's like, "Hey, you fancy guys, fuck off," or whatever. I'm exaggerating, but they get to a base, and since they're on this super secret mission, they're like, "Hey, we need you to do exactly what we tell you, and we need this and that." And so they need the best driver on the base, and the best driver is Abraham Slam, who's in like a superhero suit. And I don't know precisely if he's supposed to be a direct parallel. Obviously, the name, maybe a bit of Slam Bradley, but his costume, it's kind of like if you took the like Barry Allen Flash costume, but like applied like Batman color and motifs to it. Nothing like crazy in this issue, but I really enjoyed it. If it weren't for an issue we're going to talk about later, it would definitely be my pick of the week, but it's definitely not.
I'm wondering what your pick of the week is then. Wow, wait, it's all right. I think I know what it is, but
all right, I'll let Mike take us over to DC land.
Yeah, it's Justice League number 21. It's the Wrath of the World Forger, as this evil Superman is revealed who he is. Superman is still trapped. By the way, this issue kicks off with Superman trying to fight him, and this evil Superman saying, "Guess what? I've heard it all before. I've trapped 100 different versions of you here. You're not getting out." Just so Superman's still trapped, but hey, once again, still the same creative team as the last 3 issues. The coloring of Superman
part 4
was part. I think it's part 3.
Okay.
Yeah, part 3. Though it feels like part 4. It feels like hardly anything happens in each of these issues. Coloring on Superman's cape looks great. It's like he's in this world that's just fully black, but like the red is just still bright and it's great. And the highlights of the blue are great, while the white Superman is just gold and shining. But he flies off. Bruce and this alternate world Dick Grayson are like just sitting and talking and having tea, talking about Alfred's death in this universe and how the world is fully at peace. And like it's a fine scene, but also like once again the another world parallels from the DCAU Justice League show are fully here, and I still prefer that story over this. As Jean, the Martian Manhunter, calls together a meeting of the minds. They have like this room in like I guess his head that they can all meet and talk in secret. And they're talking about how since like the kid of this alternate Martian Manhunter and Hawkgirl have informed them that things aren't like they seem, the evil Superman invades it and reveals that he's the World Forger, which he's the brother of the um the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor. Okay, great. And he's informed them, "Hey, since you dicks broke the source wall, stuff's gonna only get worse." So there's a kind of a lot of like a little bit of Hickman's like um what were they the with the Earths colliding together
The builders.
at the builders like the what were like the events called like when the stuff
Oh,
crashes in.
incursions.
Yeah, kind of like incursions, not really like that though. Of like, hey, and the World Forger tells the Justice League, hey, you guys either you got to make a choice, and it's in this universe we only save the people that were good, and that's the only way it's going to work out. And the Justice League, so he faces them. It's like either you save all the good people and you make this the world, or you try to save everyone and fail. And he leaves them to the choice. And the Justice League talks about it, and they're like, I don't know what we can do. And like they all know that obviously the right decision, they're going to try to save everyone. But Batman all of a sudden is like, maybe we don't save everyone. And like all we're doing since we've broken the source wall is taking one step forward and two steps back every time we fight. And they're like, well, we need hope. And like Batman's like, we're not like maybe it's time we stop clinging to hope. But like then Wonder Woman's like, well, Superman would never let us do that. But also Batman's not the person to say maybe we should stop not save everyone. Like if there's anyone on the Justice League to me who's always going to be like, no, I don't care, we're saving everyone, it's Batman. Um but because he talked to Dick Grayson and has seen how great this world is, he's like kind of bought into it. I hate this. Also, obviously, the Justice League has decided they're going to try to save everyone. At the same time, Mixie's going crazy in the regular reality, and the Mara, Starman, and Jarro, the Starro thing, are fighting him. So this whole thing was disguised as a Mixie story, and it's really just more totality and source wall bullshit that I hate. So really disappointing because I thought this was going to be more of like a fun Justice League story, but the Justice League is transported to this other world here, and it's being led by a Lois Lane who's killed their version of Superman. Because the whole point of this nice world, that it was all a mask under everything else, and it's shown that Lois Lane killed this world Superman, and like the number one thing connecting all of these other worlds are that Superman has to die. So okay, great. Next issue is a Legion of Doom issue. The story is not what I wanted it to be or what I thought it was going to be.
Well, how about Young Justice?
Young Justice has been really good, man. Um, uh, though it seemed like this opening arc of gathering the team together has taken forever. With Bendis's decompressed storytelling, we're still on Gem World, and like they're showing different places. Like each issue has been a little bit about each member and how they got there. Mostly the members that we're familiar with, like the new characters like Ginny Hex and Teen Lantern. We have not gotten a full issue yet. But this issue is mostly concerning Amethyst, who I know little to nothing about. So I'm guessing all of this has been changed continuity wise, and it's talking about the houses of Gem World and how they're conspiring against her and kind of how they threw her in the brig for acting out against. The great moments here between Impulse and Superboy. His Impulse is like keeps going around like Superboy, and he's like trying to pal around with him, but also save him, and also trying to figure out what's happened to Connor in these years they've been away. They're still like being under attack by these Gem World guards, but Superboy like punches one of them in this great splash page, and just like he hits all of his armor off, and it's great. So they go to the castle, which is where Robin and the rest of the team are held up, and they break them out. And the same time, there's flashbacks to how Robin and Amethyst met up and how they got thrown into the brig. So we're going to get the rest of that story next issue, and I think this should wrap up the opening arc of getting the team together, because by the end of this, Connor breaks out the rest of the team to the brig. There's a great moment where Cassie and Tim both look up and they see that it's Connor, and then them and Impulse all like have a hug, and it's great because we haven't seen these characters together in how many years. And characters like Teen Lantern and Ginny Hex have kind of been put on the back burner here. Like it's really been mostly the characters we're familiar with, but I'm assuming we're eventually going to get more of them down the line here. But yeah, the team's finally assembled, but we still got to figure out how Amethyst and Robin came to meet, and like the last bit of part of how they got thrown in prison, we'll get in the next issue. This book continues to be good. This was one of my better, probably in my top 3 of the week. But I still think it's taken way too long to assemble your squad here and get rolling. But I digress.
All right. I think you're handling.
Art's still fantastic, though.
I think you're handling.
Yeah, we're jumping over to Marvel
ASM.
with Amazing Spider-Man 18.hu. Was this the book that was your book of the week?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Same here. This was like a lot more emotional than I thought it was going to be. You knew that the issue of the Gibbon could be heartbreaking. Nick Spencer, you've done it again. Excuse me, because I can't talk. So this is the second of the HU issues, and this one's all about the Gibbon, who we saw in the last issue last week, as Spidey tried to save the Gibbon, but he listened to the Vulture instead of Spider-Man and got taken down. And we kind of follow up directly where this left off, of the Gibbon being surrounded by a bunch of people. But we get a flashback at the beginning of how the Gibbon was always picked on as a kid, and kind of as he goes through his head as he's being hunted and shot and just like maimed. It's just horrifying just watching this guy who kind of is reflecting on the bad decisions. I mean, inherently, inherently, he's actually not a bad guy. He was just kind of strung in the wrong direction here and there, and he tried to do good. But, I really liked the moment where he tried to team up with Spider-Man, and talks about the moment that Spider-Man laughed at him. I thought that was really good, and also kind of heartbreaking.
So some of these things, as you go along, I want to note. So when he first tries to meet Spider-Man and Spider-Man laughs at him, and then he lashes out at Spider-Man. That's literally what happened in Amazing Spider-Man 110 and 111, which are some of the very final issues, if not the final issues from Stan Lee. And I'll let you pick back up.
Well, I want to quickly mention here. Yeah. I want to quickly mention, because I was talking with Matt from Saga the Clone Saga / Daily Spider Bites off air about this issue, because he liked this issue a lot too, where we talked about why is this so good, but in the same vein, like Dan Slott, the previous Spider-Man, was a big Spider-Man fan, right? He'd like claimed to have read everything, I think, but he would just simply pull and show his knowledge, but not add anything to it. Well, Nick Spencer shows his knowledge, but adds some legacy and like actually follows up on some stuff here, which is why it's more enriching than reading a Dan Slott book. I don't want to solely turn to look how much better Spencer is than Dan Slott, but Spencer takes the issue about the Gibbon and makes it horribly emotionally heart-wrenching. Like you're cheering for this guy to get out as he's getting shot and picked at with swords and guns, and at the end of this issue he does die. Like Spider-Man meets up with him again, he sees him, and he bites it. But we had a really cool moment with the Rhino like charging through a bunch of these AI hunters too. But yeah, he takes everything, talking about giving us basically a whole rundown of the history of the Gibbon, which kind of he did with the Black Cat issue, but not as much here. But by the end of it, he made you care for the Gibbon, and like I was sad he died at the end of it.
Yeah. So one of the flashback points is he talks about teaming up with the Grizzly for the the Spider Hunter Squad or whatever the hell they call themselves, and that is from Spectacular Spider-Man 246, and that's Dave Mateus post Clone Saga.
I would have liked to see more footnotes in this issue, by the way.
Yeah, the footnotes would have made this like a 10.2 for me. And then he gets married to Princess Python, and she gets hurt, and he takes care of her. And that, not from a Spider-Man story. Well, that is from Punisher War Journal by Matt Fraction.
Wow.
Interesting thing.
Also, again, like the moment he sees Princess Python running, and he hopes he notices her and tries to that hurts too. Like, damn, Nick Spencer just breaks your heart in this issue. I've got this misunderstood creature just getting shot at and killed.
Yeah. And the craziest thing of all, and again, tragic that there's no footnote, talked about slipping into a parallel dimension one time where everyone is like an ape person, and that is yes, that's Marvel Apes.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god.
And guess who wrote Marvel Apes?
Was it Dan Slott?
No, it's Carl Kiesel.
Okay.
From Section Zero. I'm gonna put out a hot take.
Yeah.
This is better than Tom King's Kite Man.
I mean,
even though I haven't read that, I'm really just fucking around trolling for the hot take.
They're both very, very good. Very, very good. Though I think this issue, I mean, the Kite Man issue is tragic and horrible, but I felt I'll say, I'll agree with you. I thought this issue was better than the Kite Man issue from Batman, but not to do a disservice to the Kite Man issue. They're both like 5 out of 5 books for me.
Yeah.
But the only bad thing about this book was the Greg Land cover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much.
I thought Greg Land's art was really, really good throughout this.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
And honestly, I like the HU. If this was what the 0.1 issues were for, not like extended parts of the story, just one-offs that you couldn't tell. Here, I like this idea, and I think it's perfect for this event because now we have had 2 HU issues, which are very good. This one being our pick of the week, and it now only enriches the event around it. Now, like I feel like if you missed out on one phone, if you missed out on the HU issue, you don't miss out totally on Hunted, but this definitely reading this Hunted now has a lot more stakes and impact now.
See, I'm kind of the opposite because I missed like one issue of Hunted, but now and I also I also skipped the Black Cat issue, but now just based on how impressed I was with this, I'll probably jump back in, but at the very least, maybe I'll just read the .hu issues because again, they're standalone and so far they're really great.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think though vice versa, I think I said you could probably read Hunted without reading the HU issues, but these enrich it. I feel like if you just read the HU issues, you're definitely going to miss stuff from Hunted.
A little bit. I mean, you're missing like the background context, but they're still great standalone stories.
But this whole moment came out of Spider-Man trying to save Gibbon in the last one, and he bought in on Vulture, and Vulture double-crossed him.
Yeah.
But I jokingly said, hot take, this is better than Kraven's Last Hunt. This whole story, because I don't like Kraven's Last Hunt that much. I think it's overrated.
Well, first of all, it's obviously not remotely close to done yet, and but even still, once it's done, very unlikely.
Out of a coffin, great. It was a rejected Batman script. Just remember that.
So I'm gonna jump over to Avengers.
I want to say I like Kraven's Last Hunt. It's very good.
No Road Home number 8. Art here is by Carlo Barberi, who I feel like he's like one of Marvel's like top fill-in guys. Like
this issue, I think the beginning pages were rough.
Yeah.
Got better throughout.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not bad, but like here's the fill-in guy.
Yeah. Like you notice it.
But the thing is, on a weekly book, in reality, this is not really a fill-in. It's just like we have a weekly book. Here's our A-tier artist who is going to headline it, and then we have to use the fill-in guys for certain issues. So Hulk last issue at the very end, he was taking Hawkeye and Rocket to Paradise, or like a Euphoria, I think it's called.
Yeah, Euphoria. Which, yeah, Paradise.
And it turns out that's where Nyx is, because that's where the third shard is. So now Hulk has a shard, Nyx has a shard, and the third one is somewhere here on Euphoria. And Clint has a badass moment where he's like, I gotta make a bow out of this random tree. And
Yeah, it was awesome.
Rocket straps some bullshit to some sticks, and we're gonna make arrows. And little pep talk and everything. Best Hawkeye moment in this series so far. And they've been, besides him being, in the wrong costume and everything, which they kind of explained, Hawkeye has been pretty great in this series.
I mean, Hawkeye and Hulk have stolen the show.
Yeah. But it turns out the arrows were a distraction for the Hulk to grab Nyx by her head. And I love this panel where you see the Hulk just gripping Nyx's head, because they show like the indentations of her skin, but under her fingers. And since she's like a ambiguous god and everything, you can really lean into the cartooning there.
Well, not only that, and then Hulk just takes her and throws her across the planet or the realm.
And it's a great sequence. And then she's like, "Oh, I got the trump card. I'm gonna like negate my powers and flip the sun back on."
Yeah,
which is gonna bring Banner out, because this is the Immortal era.
This is gonna get really weird, because the same thing happens in this week's Immortal Hulk.
Okay.
I was like, okay,
but
all right.
But this had me question, like, I guess she knows his deal. Like, she read up on the Marvel handbook or something. Because how shouldn't she I mean, I guess he's made a lot of, like,
said multiple times that the night is his time.
Yeah, he made a lot of taunts, but like, she's kind of making a guess here. Obviously, we know what's going on, and so that's basically their whole sequence up until the end.
Yeah.
Jump over to the other crew. Conan is bleeding. Everyone else has visions too and is broken down. And Herc is the one who fights it, and then just squishes on Oizus, killing the last child of Nyx.
Yep.
And Voyager, it's Voyager, right? Voyager.
Yeah. He finally wakes up, because she's been pretty much sidelined throughout all of this.
Teleports them to Euphoria, and then Nyx, her final card, once all the Avengers are back together in front of her, she destroys or makes disappear all the stars. And so now it's just getting even darker and darker. And so we'll see how they go from there. We only have 2 issues left.
This was like one of my favorite issues of this. I love this.
Yeah. The arts suffered a little bit, but I loved a lot of the character moments and everything. And
everything I want out of a team book. It feels big. The stakes are big. Everyone gets a shining moment. I mean, I think it's been pretty. I mean, it's definitely been heavy on Hulk and Hawkeye, but I feel like Scarlet Witch has gotten a moment. Spectrum got a moment the last issue too. Conan has been worked in pretty well, where he's not really taking away or anything. I think he's only added some more fun to this, at least in my view.
Characterization on Hercules is pretty much perfect, and
I love Herc in this.
And it's pretty much it's kind of effectively a Hercules story, since it's all Greek mythology related.
I imagine next issue Voyager is going to show some stuff off.
Yeah, and so I learned flipping through trades and stuff that they did this same thing for No Surrender. Both of these weekly series, they've had some pretty cool, like, editorial kind of sections where one of the writers will be like, hey, this is my inspiration for this, or here's a quick bio about this character so and so, or here's the design
for Euphoria.
Yeah, so they explain that Euphoria is from it's a Dan Slott creation from his Silver Surfer run.
Yep.
And I think it seems that they're clearly recontextualizing it a little bit, but cool again. some of the few Marvel books that we actually really like are using continuity in an amazing way.
Yeah,
Um, Unfortunately, neither of them have footnotes, as we've also complained about on this. I was like, hey, footnote Rocket Raccoon's first appearance. That's a big deal.
yeah.
Obviously, they would be a lot better with those, but really cool to have those references regardless, of course.
I love the cover for next week's issue with the Avenger with the Vision's head getting all broken up.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about obviously issue 9 next week.
All right. Other Hulk appearances.
Dude, Mortal Hulk 16 is really good, and I'm getting out of I'm getting I'm running out of ways of saying Al Ewing's really really good at what he does, but Al Ewing's really really good at what he does. I really love uh this painted cover by Alex Ross with Rick Jones sitting at his grave. I think it's one of the better covers of the book. There's not there's not like overshine to anything like usual that we talk about this, but this issue opens with the government is obtained Rick Jones's body, the shadow base, and they're messing around with it with gamma stuff, so that that's not good. Instead of Rick Jones being able to die in peace, he's probably going to come back as a giant monster. Um, we get back to the journalist that was been following the Hulk around, as it's kind of now been put out that Rick Jones's grave has been dug up, and she wants to do a piece on Rick Jones because it also is a Hulk piece. And then she's also investigating Betty Ross Banner's house, as there's now a giant hole in it because something broke out of there when as the public now knows that Bruce Banner went to go visit her after Thunderbolt Ross's funeral. We cut back to Bruce Banner and Doc Samson, who it's now the day, so Doc Samson's carrying Banner around. They go to the Hulk's last known location, which is this cave, as they're talking and trying to figure out where Rick Jones was taken to. And suddenly, as they're getting back there, by the way, it's like dusk when they get back there, so we get another crazy the Thing 1980s John Carpenter-esque transformation for the Hulk that's disgusting. But Joe Bennett absolutely kills it on the art with this. Just horribly gruesome, just bones cracking and moving. It's great. Um, I haven't talked about it enough. I love reading the Hulk fully contextualized in his voice where he can talk and emote and he's not just screaming Hulk smash. I love it. They end up going to the Shadow Base and they fight gamma infused monsters like a giant dog and a giant ape thing that's been experimented on, and Rick Jones is placed in this gamified mummified cocoon thing. As the doctors are looking at the Hulk coming in, and they know they're going to break some stuff up. This police investigator has found feathers at the scene of Betty Ross Banner's house, and we cut to up in a tree, and it looks like Betty Ross is now turned into is it the Red Falcon or something like that?
The Red She-Hulk?
Well, she's Red She-Hulk, but she's like a bird thing.
I don't know what the fuck
I
that is.
forget there's a name for it. So Al Ewing's now adding another part of the Hulk stuff back in. I forget what the name of the character is, but yeah, Betty has a new transformation now. Great action scenes of Doc Samson and the Hulk fighting these gamified creatures. The last one they fight's a giant bat. And they talk about which they take a shot at Batman there, where the Hulk says, "I thought the bat." He says in the movies, the Bat guy always wins, which was a little funny. And Doc Samson starts talking to the Hulk. And he's like, "You enjoyed that, didn't you?" There's kind of getting a more psychological, deeper dive on the way this iteration of the Hulk's mind works. But just as they're talking, they pause for a moment, and these UV lights come on, which harnesses the sun from UV rays. So the Hulk turns back into Bruce Banner, right? And Bushwhacker comes back, who a Punisher villain is here, and he shoots Doc Samson in the head, and then he starts shooting at Banner, and he hits him right in the abdomen, and Bruce is behind a wall, and as Bushwhacker's calling out for Bruce Banner's name, he says Bruce isn't here, and then we get the end title text is "It's Joe." So Joe Fixit is coming back. I'm
Yeah.
very excited because Joe Fixit's probably going to beat the shit out of Bushwhacker.
Eventually, I will,
Uh, I
reading.
can't see you not enjoying this book. I want all of this collected in a giant omnibus one day so I can just
Well,
read it over. I love this.
they just, I think it was in fact solicited, not even cataloged. They just solicited the first oversized hardcover.
I might be getting that. I, my brother. I just want to add, my brother who read comics years ago back in the '90s. He started reading this, and he called me. He's like, "Are you reading Immortal Hulk?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's great." So like everyone I've talked to who's read this book has had nothing but like awesome things to say about it.
Well, what's really interesting is apparently, and I haven't checked the charts to see where it places for them, but apparently this book is performing very well sales wise.
Yeah, it's I know the first issue went to like a third printing or something.
Yeah, several issues have gone back to print, and like there's also a weird like speculator boom around it where certain issues like will go up on, not like super expensive, but like random like recently released issues of Immortal Hulk are going for like $15 on eBay. It's really weird. So people are liking this book. It's selling well. There's like a weird fucked up eBay market behind it. So one of the star books from Marvel, and
The Red Harpy is the name of the bird thing, by the way.
okay. And it seems like this is the home run that Al Ewing has been looking for several years.
Yeah, like I don't think this book's getting canceled anytime soon, like Ultimates was.
I mean,
Um,
I would say his big jump. There's probably one or two smaller things before it, but his big jump into Marvel was around Infinity when he launched Mighty Avengers, and all of the curse of his books is that a lot of them would get canceled, or Marvel would have to relaunch and retitle and reboot them and stuff like that. And but almost everything he does has been critically acclaimed, and people who actually read it have liked it.
I would
So
love. I mean, I would love. I mean, we're never gonna get it on a budget. I would love to see like a Disney Plus kind of show with this version of the Hulk. Like, I think it would be fantastic. But obviously, they've never set up any of the other Hulk stuff in the MCU. But like, this is just. I. I mean, it's probably the best Hulk run since Peter David, and the way that it's just performed. But
I mean, at the very least, since Greg Pak, but you have to
yeah,
acknowledge that was already still almost
10
like 10 years ago.
and like I know I've read Planet Hulk. I love Planet Hulk, but like I feel like a lot of Pack's run kind of like flames out. Like I don't think anything's really flamed out yet. I know I wasn't high on the Green Door arc inside the Hulk's head, but it was still good. This book is getting it's a book that started as like kind of like this supernatural book where like the Hulk was going to keep fighting gamma infused people, and I was like, I could read this for days. And then like the Avengers showed up, and he fought all the Avengers, and then the Hulk got chopped into actual pieces, and then he reassembled himself, and then we got into a thing in the Hulk's mind, and now we're doing stuff with Rick Jones. So it's gone everywhere at this point, and it's been awesome the whole way through. Like, yeah, I can't. I easily. I mean, it's this and Amazing Spider-Man that are my favorite books Marvel's publishing right now. And you're going to talk about a book that's not one of the best books Marvel's publishing right now, or it's the best book Marvel's publishing right now if you love Rob Liefeld in the '90s.
Yeah, really tough to say, but this is Major X #1. This is the glorious return of Rob Liefeld. He's writing this book, he's penciling it, and he's partially inking it. We get inks from a few other guys, including Dan Fraga, sometimes going by the moniker Fraga Boom. And this allows me to pointlessly insert something again. Here is Blood Strike #2, the cover to this by Dan Fraga. And just check out this character. I
Oh, it's
think,
Cable.
but look, he's got pouches, he's got straps and pouches, he's got like 3 belts on his arm, and then 3 belts on his arm, and it's totally like they know what they're doing. It's hilarious and over the top, and
Before you talk about Major X, did you count how many backgrounds that Rob Liefeld decided to not draw in this issue?
part of the genius. I mean, sometimes in like a
It
lot of
is hilarious.
a lot of it,
Like, they didn't even color the back of some. It's just white behind some of these pages.
yeah. Well, some of it is definitely lazy, but like 1 or 2 of the panels, I think it actually looks super slick. Like mostly the ones
Yeah,
that it's just like a white background and like it's not a bordered panel. Some of those look
yeah.
um
I don't. I didn't think Rob's art looked terrible here. By the way, I thought it looked all right.
yeah. So Major X, our main character, travels back to the early days of X Force to beat everyone up. It's totally X Force. Cable says X Force, but
Well, he's in that costume. Like he's in the X Force look with the giant, like deep V-neck but blue shoulder pad thing. Like it's not. It's X Force Cable.
Major X, he also has some version of Beast which is gray with some red accents with him.
Yeah. Why didn't he just use Caliban? Because Caliban looks almost exactly the same.
I don't know. So they are from Existence, which is a alternate dimension slash planet created by the Essential, and it's this utopian future slash alternate dimension where mutants live freely and everyone's good. But suddenly everything gets fucked up and no explanation to us yet. So they travel back in time slash to a different dimension using his motorbike. And there's a quick scene where I guess it's supposed to be like a quick flash of some of the characters on Existence. And some of the characters there are totally from Image. I mean, one of them looks like, so the thing at Image is like basically every like Image title had their version of Wolverine, their version of like I mean here back to this cover,
Yeah.
that's Liefeld's version of Wolverine. He has some dumb name like Dead Blow or Dead Law,
One of
whatever.
them is green and has a fin on their head, and it's like, how is that
Yeah,
not Savage Dragon?
it probably looks like here's a better panel of the Wolverine ripoff.
Yeah.
Nice double page, have to turn it, and there's one character who looks a lot like I guess the extreme version would be this, but it reminds me of I think the Top Cow version of the character is called um, Velocity. For Top Cow, it's like the Speedster, and then you see a character that looks like this, and these are like the I think these are part of the Wildstorm mythos. These are like the Daemonites, where they're like they have the dumb like crown looking ear things and like fire in their head. Uh, so that like page was really weird. Um, and then Wolverine jumps out, and it turns out that Major X's sword is made from his bones. In
Yeah.
and
And then
then
give it back.
and then Dreadpool shows up, fucking up everyone. I'm pretty sure this is the first appearance of Dreadpool. Better get that flabbed.
Raw, I simultaneously, like, this is the biggest hackish thing Rob could have done, where we all know he's the co-creator of Deadpool. What did he do? He literally just made another Deadpool and added an R.
Yep. But then the real Deadpool shows up. And
Yep.
to Rob's slight credit, it's worth noting that these two characters are characterized differently.
Yes.
And I think actually, and it's not like we get the full
Well, I
issue of
think
it.
Dreadpool's closer to what Deadpool actually was when he first showed up, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I was about to say is we don't get a full issue of Deadpool, obviously. But for what it's worth, I think Rob had Deadpool pretty on character in this.
Yeah.
And as you said, the interesting part is that like the very first appearances of Deadpool, he was not like the funny character. That's really an invention of
Crack
people.
jokes, but it wasn't in the way he does now. Like that came later with like Joe Kelly.
Yeah, the modern characterization of Deadpool is all well past Rob Liefeld's exit. But obviously, he's the creator and so closely associated with the character, and involved to a slight extent in the movies and everything. So he's caught up and understands how people have evolved his own character. Obviously, we get a Deathstroke joke again. Like Liefeld is kind of, sort of admitted, like, hey, yeah, I kind of ripped off Deathstroke, and
Well,
Liefeld,
he loves the Teen Titans.
yeah, he's a huge Titans fan, and the end of this, Major X reveals himself. Also, there were like 3 panels which I thought were actually great. The page right before Major X reveals himself, where it's like
Yeah,
Cable,
Cable's great.
and then like windows or something in the shadows, and then Major X below him. It's a pretty cool page. And there's a page earlier on where it's just like a super boring Major X figure straight at the camera, but like the top half of his body is in shadow. And again, like the lighting, this is not how lighting works in any scenario, but it looks cool. And the reveal is that Major X is Cable's son, Alexander Nathaniel Summers. This is a new thing, so we have a new addition to the Summers Gray family tree. And my overall thoughts is like it's hard to take this seriously.
Well, I
It's
don't think you're supposed to.
Yeah, that's the thing is like because Liefeld is relatively like self-aware. He's pretty self-aware.
Has to be. Like there's
Like
no way he's not.
yeah, and a lot of it is like just through time, and some of it is kind of unfortunate in my opinion, where Liefeld has been the butt of so many jokes. There was a point really like not even remotely like the 90s weren't even remotely done, but it's like mid 90s suddenly everyone was like, hey, that Rob Liefeld guy, he kind of fucking sucks. And that's not me saying that. I don't necessarily agree with that. Obviously he has his issues, but
I mean, the cover to issue 2 is awful.
he turned into a meme and has now been a meme for like 20 years now.
But a meme who still gets work. Like
yeah, because he's still kind of popular.
He just did variant covers for Justice League. Like
yeah, for Superman.
Yeah, Superman and Justice League.
So it's like and at this point he has kind of embraced the memes. Like he did the pouch character parody thing and stuff like that, and he really loves comics and he loves drawing comics and talking about comics. He's not the greatest artist.
No, but he's the guy who's made a career out of doing what his dream was to do. Like
this is really a terrible comic, but I secretly fucking love it.
Well, no, we talked about it off air, like during the week. Like I told you after I read it, I was like, you're either like this is the book that you're either gonna love or you're gonna hate. And the way you said it is like one comic review site gave this like a 1 out of 5, and another one gave it like a 4 out of 5. Like you're on that side of the spectrum with this. I'm probably not continuing with this, by the way.
I definitely am. The thing,
well, yeah, I know you like you. I know you will like.
Just to say it again, another like way that I'm thinking about it is so you could put like the latest C tier writer and the random fill-in guy on a Marvel book and like a B tier character, and you can get a really bad comic out of that. And Marvel publishes plenty of those recently. And this is a bad comic as well, but it's like this fucked up auteur trash. And there's one way to look at that where it's like, okay, yeah, they're allowing Liefeld to put out this trash because he has a name, but it's also like, in my perspective, it's like there's some respect there. It's like this is his vision and his vision only. He's doing 3/4 of this book on different duties, and it's kind of crazy. And I kind of love that they're letting him do this.
Yeah.
Now, Mike, you want to talk about an X-Men book that, or actually, no, you want to talk about
we're
Marvel?
going to Marvel team up real quick. We got Eve L. Ewing and Joey Vasquez on this book.
No relation to Al Ewing.
No, I looked that up. I was wondering. But it's actually Dr. Eve L. Ewing. She does have a doctorate.
Yeah, she's like a Chicago like professor / prose writer or something. She writes Lionheart. Did you know Al Ewing is British?
The Al Ewing is British?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not surprised. The man's a great writer.
Exactly.
So we're in a new era of Marvel team up, Vince. Excited? You didn't read this, so let me catch you up. But you do know what villain shows up in this book, and the week we finish Saga of the Clone Saga, the Jackal shows. It's like Marvel planned.
And as we noted on that episode, Jackal hasn't showed up for quite a while.
It was like clockwork, like perfect storm ways that happened. But this is a team up between Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel. And we open up this issue with Peter Parker getting ready in his apartment because he has to give a keynote address at ESU for one of his friends who's getting honored. It's I forget who it was. But Kamala is going on the field trip, so like that's how they intersect. But God, and then the Jackal, while Peter's giving the keynote address, that goes fine. When she comes up on stage, the Jackal shows up, and then Kamala Khan shows up. But what's intersected here is when Peter is talking to what's Robbie's, is it Robertson's son? That's Peter's roommate right now. I forget what his name is.
I think it's Robbie.
It's Robbie. Yeah, because it's Joe and then Robbie. Yeah, Peter and Robbie are talking about how, like, Peter's like going off on this tangent how like it weren't things simple when we were younger, and then when we get to like this, the story is shown from two different views, and then it'll syncs up. I thought it was very heavy-handed, and the way it was set up, which I thought was weird. But the doctor, by the way, the friend of Peter's that he introduces is Yesenia Rosario. Is that from? I don't know if that's a new character created just for this or.
It's not ringing any bells.
It didn't ring any bells to me. But what happens is the Jackal, Spider-Man, and Kamala fight over this device that the doctors created, and it kind of explodes, and Kamala and Peter have switched brains. Like, they've switched places. Like, Peter's in the body of Kamala, and Kamala's in the body of Peter. So, like, now Peter's young again, and now Kamala's old. Like, ain't that crazy? And it's so heavy-handed that I was like, oh, God. Even weirder is Kamala wakes up wearing a Spider-Man t-shirt at the beginning of this, and I was like, all right, that's on the nose, too. Like,
oh, that's
what?
She's like a
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's in character, but I was like, oh, okay. I thought she loved Wolverine and Carol, though.
She just likes all of them.
Yeah.
She writes fanfic. Or used to.
I'm just gonna be honest. I didn't love this. I thought the art was okay. But looks to be a multi-part thing.
Yeah.
which I
I
would have
think
preferred just a one and done.
I think it's mostly confirmed that this is a Kamala book.
Okay.
First arc,
Well, I'm excited for
Spider-Man.
that. Kamala teaming up with other heroes makes the most sense, and spiritually, if she like Spider-Man was the young hero and he teamed up with Marvel Team Up, so I'm more than happy seeing Kamala team up with other people.
Yeah, I think she fits that role best right now. I mean, the cliche option would the cliche convenient option would have been Miles.
Yeah.
Um, I think Kamala is the better choice for
And I think
various
and I
reasons.
think the first team up being with Spider-Man is almost kind of like a passing of the torch
Yeah,
as
that's a good point.
well. Like I said, the story it's fun, but nothing groundbreaking here. I thought the art's fine. The Jackal showing up almost kind of infuriates me because this means that what's going to happen here because the Jackal has shown up. But I did like how Ewing puts like very continuity heavy in this. Like we get references to both things that are happening in Spider-Man's book and Kamala's. Like
Oh,
this
that's
feels
great.
like it's very grounded. Like yeah, they reference some of the other stuff that's been going on in Amazing Spider-Man. Robbie's there because they're at the apartment, and then stuff that happens in Kamala's book as well. But though her book has only had one issue so far, but a lot of this references come from Amazing Spider-Man, which I like because they're how is he even allowed back at ESU after he was thrown out for plagiarism? Like, oh, he's here as a favor of his friend who wants to introduce him for the keynote. I was like, oh, okay, like everything works out perfectly, and it's very grounded in continuity, which I like. Um, but yeah, back to X Men Corner, Uncanny X Men number 15, Vince.
All right, so Dark Beast is fucking around with Karma, and at first you kind of think, all right, he's up to no good, and we'll get back to that. So picked up from last issue, Captain America shows up, and we're expecting some bullshit like AVX retread, but he just gives them a business card and is a little condescending. He's like, "Trust no one. Let me help you." And Cyclops is like, "Yeah, fuck you." He has a good line where he says, "Not my, you're not my captain," and it's almost like like a "not my president" joke. Um, and then he talks to Wolverine. He's like, "Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Captain America will show up in this series again." And
Well,
he
I mean, he hasn't. Like, he'll probably show up again. He's been in this now twice.
and Scott says something about how Wolverine knows Captain America better because all the fucking Avengers years.
Well, not only that, he served with him in World War II.
Well, yeah, on like one mission or something. And so then they go to try and track down the MLF shit, and Chamber is a little rebel bastard, which was funny. And then they fight the MLF. Most of these MLF characters don't matter. And then Banshee, he's in like his stupid undead form still, I guess. I think that
Yeah,
is
he's still like a zombie.
and that goes back to I think like Uncanny Avengers or whatever. I'm not certain what that's from. But that's still his status quo. And Hope, she's trying to assassinate a politician. She's got a rifle, and some of it is motivated by the fact that her adoptive dad, Cable, is dead now because that's stupid bullshit. And so Scott tries to calm her down. Wolverine jumps in, and Scott gets shot in the face.
He gets
And
shot in the eye.
how do you like? Is this Wolverine's fault?
I don't think so. I think she was going to shoot him regardless.
I feel like yeah. I think that's supposed to be the point, but I think the art's slightly unclear. Like you could definitely interpret it as like she was gonna shoot him elsewhere, maybe, or just shoot close, or not shoot him. But it seems like I read it as Wolverine startles her or throws her off guard, and so she shoots when she didn't intend to, or shoots where she didn't intend to.
Well, I mean, I think she was motioning to kill him before this, so like I felt like the way I read it was like she was shooting him anyway.
Yeah. And then with her powers, she blasts Logan with Scott's powers. and then gets away with shooting the politician, and then
Yeah.
Logan stabs her in the back with his skull all exposed.
Yeah, this panel was good though. Like it was gruesome, but it
Yeah,
was good.
it's a really great panel. And even though she literally just blasted him for a second, I like kind of forgot her powers because I was like, okay, they just killed Hope.
Powers. I was like, not only that, like we see like Wolverine just like stabbing through her in this book. It was like, oh, that's like blood's rushing
Yeah,
out
it
of her
doesn't
mouth.
matter.
Wow, this is like pretty brutal for mainstream Marvel book.
Yeah. Because Scott also was like, no, or something like that in the
He's like,
background.
no, but he's bleeding all over himself too.
But I thought for a second she was dead.
Yeah,
So
same.
new status quo, Scott has one eye now. So he's a
Yeah,
cyborg.
he's a little Cyclops. I
Um,
kind of hate this. He just came back. Like
I don't
he just came back.
I mean you have to expect it. They'll probably fix it relatively quickly. We're not gonna have
What Dark Beast is doing, they're going to be able to fix it.
yeah. But I'm interested to see because we don't see him like back in proper costume again. I'm interested to see how they actually handle this because realistically, I think they'll just like have him look exactly the same and reference it, or he'll have a bandage on. I think he's still. They're not going to give him like a one eye visor or anything like that. I don't think they're doing that.
Well, he can't use his powers right now.
Well, yeah, they're not clear on that because Dark Beast is like, hey, if you use your powers in the one eye, you're gonna blow up your fucking brain. Um, and
Then there
Hope
was a cool moment where like Havoc just grabbed Dark Beast and he was like, "If you don't fix it, I'm going to blow your head off."
yeah. Hope is alive, and though off panel, we don't check back in on her. And they captured all the MLF except for Banshee. They just left stupid zombie Banshee out there.
Well, if that's the last we have to see him in this book, good.
And then the major development at the end, besides the missing eye, is Dark Beast cured all the girls of the transmode virus.
Yeah.
And the transmode virus, of course, related to Warlock and all of that. And he determined that he could just separate it all and then combine it all and essentially make Warlock, but he has to have like a base body. And this is similar to like the Doug Locke era and stuff like that. So he moves it over to one of Madrox's dupes. So now we have a Warlock on the team. And I really love this issue.
Yeah, it's still good, man.
There's still, again, as we say every time, there's a little bit of inconsistency, but the LaRocca arc overall is really great. And or really great for what I expect from him. All the characterization is pretty spot on. I feel like some of the chamber stuff, like he's going a little bit for comedy and over the top, but that's fine.
Well, it seems
And
like Chamber's the one that's definitely changed the most for the start of this series because he was in a pretty dark spot at the beginning of this book.
yeah, Logan and Scott, Alex, they're all on point.
Do you like seeing them, all three of them, get along? Because I really do.
Yeah, it's good. But it's also not like generic, like, oh, here are three characters and they're all best friends. They acknowledge, their back and forth and their dynamics and everything like that.
Yeah, but it's cool to see all of them on like kind of like the same front for like the first time ever, like all at the same time.
So that's Uncanny X-Men. I don't have much more to say about it. Continues
Yeah,
to be.
it's still solidly good, and it's still fun to be reading an X-Men book that feels like an X-Men book. I say that every single time we cover it, though.
All right, let's talk about a book that doesn't feel like what it's supposed to feel like.
Yeah, War of the Realms came out this week, and all 27 of its variant covers.
Yep, midnight release.
I should preface this. We are only going to read War of the Realms, the series. We're not going to read tie-ins unless we hear something or see something that's really great. Maybe we'll go back and read them. Like, there's like a billion tie-ins to this book. No, we're reading the 6 issues, and the 2 more issues that we know Marvel will tack on midway through the series because they realized 6 wasn't enough.
Yep. So Jason Aaron, Russell Dodderman opens.
Great Adams, though.
Yeah, opens with a nice, sexy map. I love this.
Of all the realms.
All the 10 realms. So page 1, already slightly annoying. What?
Yeah, like, there's two ways we can view this. We can go literally page by page, so Vince can anally complain about everything, or we can run through this.
Yeah, but it's going to be 200 years until Marvel fixes that, if ever. So, whatever. Um, and then more bullshit. We get Odin, and honestly, this is like my biggest problem with all of Jason Aaron's run on Thor. Actually, as I like further realize it, Jason Aaron writes Odin as like this incompetent, asshole-ish, sexist, boorish character.
Like
Just
overconfident, like
fucking brutally out of character. And his Odin is just terrible. And I really hate this. And Odin, the thing is, it's not even just Aaron. I can't blame it all on him. Odin, I would say, has been made a complete joke and completely out of character since Matt Fraction brought him back. And also, just on that note, when Matt Fraction brought him back, he like totally ignored Odin's last continuity and like just broke it and immediately wrote him out of character and everything like that. So Odin is just a fucked character. I mean, like the people who criticize Aaron's Thor from a slightly different perspective of me, like the people who are like super anti Jane Thor, 50% of the like panels that they share and are like, look at this trash, all of those, like 50% of those are Odin lines where he's like talking about, he's like being a sexist and stuff like that. And Aaron does this thing where instead of goddamn, he has Odin saying boredam, and it's like, that's fucking stupid. It's,
oh god, that's
I really hate this. But
um,
he gets
the
killed.
art in this also like
Yeah, the art's good. But Odin, I'm taken out of my misery because Odin gets assassinated by dark elves.
yeah, like right off the
And
bat. Like, well, that's my other problem is like Odin's supposed to be super powerful, and like a couple of dark elves are able to take him out, but yet the event like but Spider-Man can take out 5 dark elves himself. Like what?
well, I don't. He's like cucked at this point or something. They got rid of his powers and they reference it, and he's missing it.
Okay,
He's
yeah,
messed up.
yeah.
So we cut to Thor, and a bleeding out Loki shows up.
He literally slams down on his boat.
And this is again, I read like the first issue of Aaron's this recent volume of Thor.
Well, yeah, we did whack when it came out for when we were doing the fresh start reviews,
Yep.
and I was the only one that was positive on that issue.
Yeah, and Matt hated it. I didn't think it was that bad.
I don't think it
I
was that
had I just had issues as I do with this. And I also read a one-off Thor issue, which I actually really loved, but none of it was really set in the present. But I'm reminded that Thor now has this stupid gimmick where he has like infinite hammers
bad.
that
Yeah,
he flies around, and I really hate that.
I kind of love it because it's just like this joke of him just dropping 1,000 hammers on you.
Well, there's the potential to show it artistically in a really cool way, and then there's the potential you just like draw like a gray cloud or some shit. It's not that interesting.
Do you like his dog? I like the dog.
I like the concept of the dog. I think it's a little more annoying than I would hope for. And as we go along, that's really my problem with Aaron is it not just applies to Odin, but so many of his characters just beat you the fuck over the head with forced comedy and like to stretch it and make and put that there. A
Yeah,
lot of
well,
people are being written out of character.
yeah. The way I messaged you and I said it feels like a lot of these characters. It almost feels like this is Aaron's pitch for like some sort of MCU Infinity War type movie.
Yeah,
Especially with the way some of the characters talk with like the almost constant jokes.
but it's like so it's like if the core Avengers from the MCU were written in the way that the Guardians of the MCU are written.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like the main MCU characters, they're not this over the top and jokey.
I did not. I almost couldn't stand Spider-Man in this.
Yeah, he's fucking awful. I
He
really
didn't shut up. Like,
I really need Matt to read this because I'm pretty interested on how he'll take Aaron's Spider-Man. But we'll get to Spider-Man in just a second. So it turns out Loki is actually Malekith, and he traps Thor in Jotunheim with the Frost Giants. And then Dodderman, initially, first page, great introduction because he draws a really fantastic Spider-Man.
this is great. Like, oh my god, my favorite Dodderman picture is that cover he drew for the third Thor omnibus.
Oh yeah.
That is one of like, it is beautiful.
So Spidey helps Freya fight off assassins.
Which I didn't even know Freya was still alive.
Yeah, and Spidey's got this super exaggerated voice, over the top quips every single panel.
It's cool to see Lady Sif.
And then Sif, Jane, and other Asgardian characters show up, and others are referenced off panel. And the big thing is, oh, here's how we're going to force every other character into
the
this.
big event is happening.
Rather than just let it be a Thor thing, is that the War of the Realms is going to be on Earth for some reason.
Well, it's the last realm that Malekith has to conquer.
Yeah. And we check in on a few characters. We get Doctor Strange, Daredevil, Wolverine, and Punisher. They all get tipped off to shit going down. 3/4 of those, everyone but Daredevil, Jason Aaron has had like a considerable run on them. And then we get a good double pager as everyone invades Earth. And I kind of, out of those 4 characters, a lot of them don't really necessarily fit in a Thor event, but I really hate Punisher's involvement.
Punisher's involvement's very odd. It seems that Aaron just wants to write the Punisher again. Daredevil like never takes place, like he never has involvement in any Marvel event. So having him like be front and center as a factor in this, I kind of hate. It's one of the reasons I love I've been a big Daredevil fan. I never have to read any like events. I can just bypass them.
Besides Shadowland.
Well, hey, under Marvel, remember what Marvel said? That wasn't an event. It was an event.
But back to Punisher, this is what I was thinking, is that so Punisher really became a big deal like post some of the initial events, like Secret Wars and Secret Wars 2. That's mostly pre-explosion of Punisher. And then a lot of the events of the 90s and stuff, Punisher doesn't get involved because he's not a hero.
Well, yeah. Well, Punisher, Daredevil, they don't. They're like the street level guys. Like they don't really need to get involved.
And it's not even street level. Punisher is not a superhero.
No, he's not a superhero.
And it's not until Civil War where it's like, oh, now we got to force Punisher into bullshit.
He has that one like kind of big moment in Civil War, and I can't recall another event that he showed up in. Yeah. He was part of Dark Reign he was part of the list in Dark Reign though. And that's when he got turned into Frankencastle.
But the thing is like if War of the Realms was in 1988 or like even 1991, even like when Punisher had 3 titles, my headcanon for what Frank Castle does when this shows up is he like sets up in an alley and just like either just like ignores the entire thing or just like sits there like camping for like the dumb like few dark elves to pop out and just like puts a bullet in their heads. He's not jumping at a frost giant and saying, "I wish I had a bigger gun."
No, he's not.
I really.
And Daredevil's not like what Daredevil would be doing is he's sticking in Hell's Kitchen, taking care of the problem there. Like if it so even enters, like unless like someone asks him or drags him in, Daredevil's really not going to be moving from Hell's Kitchen.
Well, the good comparison actually is Inferno because you have a pretty similar setup where it's this Earth invasion, and it's
I
this
haven't read
big
Inferno
deal.
yet. Yeah.
It's this big deal, but all the characters, for the most part, react to it in a proper way, in accordance with what you'd expect. I mean, Daredevil has a totally different. I mean, Daredevil's Inferno time is a little more complicated because it actually gets a little weird with Nascenti and everything, and like Blackheart and all that. You know, she was building some kind of like demon-related stuff, but Spider-Man encounters it in a totally different way from the Avengers versus the Fantastic Four versus the primary focus of the X-Men and
Right.
everything like that. Whereas this, it's like, here's some popular characters that I like that I've had runs on before, and I'm just gonna, you know, throw them in here as the main characters. And then the Avengers show up, which now includes Blade. I'm assuming he is officially an Avenger.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, this
which
is obviously spinning out and tying into Aaron's Avengers run.
yeah, which the last arc was vampire related, but not at first for Blade. He was already on Mighty Avengers by Al Ewing, and she only gets literally one line. But I was just reminded how I hate this current status quo from Jason Aaron for She-Hulk.
Great splash page of Cap yelling Avengers Assemble though.
Yeah. And then we get another splash page, or like most of the page, with a bunch of the Thor villains. They show up working with Malekith. We have Enchantress, Curse, Ulik, and a few from Aaron's run. There's like Cinder and whatever the fuck.
Yeah, the daughter of Surtur.
And then we get more splash pages. Cap makes a get these hands joke, and Spidey makes an even worse joke in the same panel. And Loki saves his mother by cutting his dad's hand off, but then his dad fucking eats him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Loki's dead, but not,
His
you know.
hero, I feel like we're gonna see Loki again.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Loki has died
Doctor
several
Strange
times.
shows up, and that was neat.
Yeah. Well, Strange shows up and is like, "Hey, stop fucking around," but then doesn't do anything because the book ends.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's basically it plot wise.
Well, then Iron Man's like, "Wow, it'd be really." He's like, "It was great when we had 3 Thors. Now we don't have one because Thor's." We cut back to Thor, who's fighting in on
Yep.
Jotunheim, which is a great last splash panel of Thor twirling 2 hammers and lightning swirling around him.
Yeah. I mean,
And then the
again,
rest of the book is ads for tie-ins.
yeah. I'm fine with, like, I like the idea. Like, all right, Malekith is going to invade Earth and more characters are going to involve, but the selection of the characters, the way almost every single character is written, a lot of the status quo stuff for Thor, it's just like, I can't get behind this, and it just annoys me every other page.
More annoying or less annoying than Heroes in Crisis or Doomsday Clock? Let's say less.
That's really complicated. First of all, Doomsday Clock, it actually doesn't annoy me a ton within the issues.
I think it's the things surrounding the release that I think are more annoying.
Yeah, it's all the meta and behind the curtain stuff, and a lot of it is guesswork from us. Though again, like some of the very recent Heroes Doomsday Clock stuff, like with Firestorm, annoyed me a ton. But this is not as bad as Heroes in Crisis for me.
No, I probably would give this like a 3 out of 5 for me. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it.
It's like a 2 from me, and those 2 points,
two and a half maybe. Yeah,
those 2 points are for Daughterman. So that's War of the Realms. I suppose we'll probably keep reading it because we hate ourselves.
Yeah, well, we're gonna commit to it.
So that's this show. Thanks for watching.
Get around to me when we get around when Deceased comes out and see if I actually stick with it though.
I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Though I kind of, just in a very shitty variant cover gimmick way, I kind of like their dumb like horror poster variant or covers.
For Deceased.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
so thanks for watching this episode. Tune in next time. A reminder, our retro issue for next week is Fantastic Four number 84.
Peace.